right. Well, hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Amy Twido, and I'm the Informal Learning Program Manager at the Seattle Public Library, and I want to welcome you all to this program. Once I make my quick announcements, I will hand things over to Mr. Delbert Richardson, founder of the award-winning Unspoken Truths Traveling American History exhibit. I am so grateful for his partnership on this wonderful program, and I want to recognize the incredible work that he and the 10 brilliant young scholars you will hear from tonight put into building this amazing program as part of the Summer of Learning. If you would like to learn more about the Summer of Learning, please visit our website at www.spl.org/Summer of Learning. Also, this program will be recorded and will be available on the Seattle Public Library's YouTube page, but please keep in mind it usually does take us about 2 weeks or so to prepare and caption videos before they were posted. But once it's ready, it will be posted on the library's YouTube page. I also want to take a moment to recognize that we are living on Indigenous land, the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish. And there will be a super quick survey link that I will share towards the end of the program in the chat section below, and I would really appreciate your feedback. And finally, I want to thank the Seattle Public Library Foundation and their donors for their very generous support of the Summer of Learning and programs like this one. And with that, I will now hand it over to the Honorable Mr. Delbert Richardson.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. And good evening. Welcome to all family and friends in Seattle and other states, because I saw some faces on there. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. My name is Delbert Richardson. I'm a community scholar, second generation storyteller of the national award-winning American History Travel Museum, The Unspoken Truths. I hope you're ready, because you're in for an amazing experience this evening. And just so you know, there's people on this screen that have been knowing me and know my work since 2005. But before I go into that, I want to thank, behind every great man is a great woman. And my lovely wife is on the screen, Miss Kimberly Richardson. I want to thank you so much for your unwavering support on this journey. And last but not least, I want to thank Miss Noni Irvin, who's not only a friend, but really the brains behind this, because if it wasn't for her and the technical side, this would not be happening. So I appreciate your patience. So let's get into the work. For those that are not familiar with me and my work, I teach American history through an Afrocentric lens. And I say that because historically, history's been told through the eyes of the victor. Okay, so one of the things I want to share with you in setting this up before we hear from these junior storytellers is that how this work evolved is that I stand on the shoulders of some amazing ancestors. Little did the junior storytellers know, in 1837, there were ancestors in the North. Now I want you to follow me. This is in the North. Slavery, or the enslavement period that we know was going on in the South, and we weren't emancipated to 1865. So in 1837, years before our ancestors were emancipated in 1865, there's this group of Black men and women doing some amazing work. And what they understood, the importance of literacy. So there's a book by Dr. Gholdy Muhammad named The Cultivating Genius: An Equity Framework for Culturally and Historical Responsive Literacy. So I want to just read something out of here to set this up, okay? It says, throughout the 1800s, a central objective among Black people was to improve and elevate their lives through literary means. One of the ways in which they set out to counter the conditions they endured during a time of racism and oppression was through reading, writing, and engaging with literary texts as part of a broader struggle to counter multiple attacks of oppression with violence. Listen to this. This is in the 1800s. They used their minds and their pens as weapons to battle injustice. Books and other forms of texts became ammunition to fuel their progress. They worked towards cultivating the minds and hearts within themselves and amongst others, which led them to being equipped to face and alter the nation's harshest realities. So you see, in 1837, there were individuals that were doing the work for us, even though we didn't know it. And the last thing I want to share out of this book that really stands out to me, and it speaks to pedagogy. And this is where the junior storytellers become so critically important. This work, my work, I say this, teaching about race and racism and history, I set up healthy spaces for difficult conversations. So I wanted to create a space, and I'm gonna read this. Students need spaces to name and critique injustice to help them ultimately develop the agency to build a better world. As long as oppression is present in the world, young people need pedagogy that nurtures criticality. And so I'm gonna stop reading. And so my work is a unique pedagogy, the American History Travel Museum, where I use authentic artifacts, storyboards, and the ancient art of storytelling. So the goal of Delbert, and this has been 15 years in the making, how can I create a space for young people, take them through my life experience as a Black person, and create a healthy space so they can be critical about the injustices that's going on in the world. And so what you're going to experience tonight is each junior storyteller being taken through a detailed storyboard by storyboard account of how I developed my travel museum. As a result of that, with some coaching, some mentoring, and some love, they're going to share with you their brilliance. So for those that are not familiar with my work, this is my logo. It's called The Unspoken Truths, and everything I do is intentional. So what you're seeing here is a metaphor. And the metaphor here is Africans of the diaspora in the United States. Now, for those that may not be aware, coming out of Africa, there are Black people all over the world. So there's multiple diasporas. So this one is specifically about African people and African-American people in the United States, The Unspoken Truths. So this is Delbert. The students call me Mr. D. This is me doing my work at its finest. I'd rather work with the youngest of children. Why? They're very curious. And you know what? They just want to learn. So if you look around the room, look to the right of me. There's the Ku Klux Klan robe. Yes, I take this robe into schools. And you know what these young people ask me? They say, Mr. D, what's that costume over there? See, they have no idea what that robe represents, but them asking that question creates a space for me to give them information to expand their knowledge. And right behind them, you can't really see, are tables. And on those tables are authentic slave shackles that my ancestors wore. And so that's the kinesthetic part of my museum. I believe our children learn quicker and faster, and sometimes even better, if they can engage in items in ways other than just reading. So you're not, it's not mandatory you know how to read in my events, because by me storytelling and by you looking and touching, I'm almost going to guarantee you're going to be inspired. So I want to get some context for what the junior storytellers experienced. So the museum was broke up into 4 parts. First part is Mother Africa. Second part is American chattel slavery. Third part is Jim Crow. And the fourth part is inventions and inventors. But here's the thing I told the young storytellers: this is my story. Because you see, I was born in 1954. I was born a Negro or colored. And I didn't have any Black history in elementary school, middle school, or high school. But by going to University of Washington, I learned about the continent of Africa. So Mother Africa represents identity, development, and also represents STEM or STEAM, science, technology, and engineering, art, and math. American chattel slavery represents what was done to us. We were never slaves, we were enslaved. And Jim Crow allows me to talk about a racial caste system that was developed primarily to oppress the other. And I'm going to say the other because we also talk about in this section, in certain times in the early 30s, there were certain groups like Polish, Germans, and Irish and Italians that were also oppressed. And last but not least, to me, one of the most powerful sections is a 40-foot display of everyday items that someone like me invented, patented, or improved upon. So what I learned, family, is that Africans who I am and the inventions of what I'm able to accomplish, and slavery and Jim Crow had two things in mind to keep me from who I am and what I can accomplish. Woo, thank you so much. So I think we're about ready. I want to read one more thing, Miss Noni. There's this saying, it says, Sankofa. This is a bird from the Akan people in Ghana, and it flies with its head backwards. And the belief is, in order for us to move forward, we have to make sure we take that rich history with us as we move forward. And so the junior storytellers represent this egg. You are doing the work that our ancestors envisioned. And so now let's get started.
Hello, my name is Marcel, and I'm going to the 7th grade at Mercer Middle School. My section of my story is going to be in Mother Africa. My story's name is My Black History, the Entry to History. Timbuktu. Timbuktu was the first university in the world, and it started in Africa. There were many Black geniuses that taught people in Europe. Europeans came over to Africa to steal and take ideas from Black African geniuses. They kidnapped teachers from the university so they could create their own university. Even though they stole all of their hard work and many people from their home countries, they forced Black people to work for them and made money off of them. Many white people went to the university in Europe because they didn't know about the one in Africa. Africa's gold rush. There was a time in Africa where there was so much gold that they just thought gold was a rock and didn't care about it. Lots of people brought it with them around the world to trade for goods. Kings and queens in Africa just didn't care because of how rich they were. Europeans came over and took gold from Africa, and that's how Europe got rich.
Thank you so much, Marcel, for leading us off. And just so you know, Marcel is the youngest of the group. And Miss Noni and I, with her help, really appreciated starting this off with Mr. Marcel because he said my history, and that's so important. Marcel, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for leading us off. So it's got a question for you. First of all, you did an amazing job. And this is just for the audience. We did not tell them what to say or give them what to say. We basically asked them questions. And then based on those questions, we helped them wordsmith what they felt and what they wanted to share. So Marcel, why do you feel it was so important to tell your story?
So people around the world know about the history of Timbuktu and Africa's gold rush, because I myself didn't even know that Timbuktu was the first university ever created.
Great job, Marcel. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with the group?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Marcel, thank you. So our next storyteller will be?
My name is Marcel Jones. I'm 14 years old, entering my freshman year of high school. The name of my story is Kings, Queens, and Gold. The title is a representation of how my mind thinks about the phrase Mother Africa. Now, knowing the words I think about the phrase Mother Africa, what are some words when you and you only think about the phrase Mother Africa? In the Middle East, did you know that people who lived there made the geometry and mathematical system? Also, the oldest piece of artwork is in a place called the Blondo Cave in Africa. We all should know about the pyramids of Giza. My ancestors were so smart, they made pyramids based off stars and their own critical knowledge. I don't really have artifacts to show, but I wanted to show you all the currency they used like money in Africa. This is a shell that they use to trade off and buy things with. We have some earrings that I thought were really nice and had shells on them. We also use the currency in Africa. I would love all of the audience to know that the first people came from Africa. My name is Marcel Jones. I'm 14 years old, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marcel J. Yes. So for the audience, just so you know, those are two brothers. And I asked all the junior storytellers, what section do you want to speak to? And both of them picked Mother Africa. Marcel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Great. So how did it feel to see yourself on the screen?
I don't know. I don't like how my voice sounds.
Okay, I know. That's okay. You did a great job. So I just want to ask you a question, and thank you so much. So how important was it, or why do you think it was important for you to tell your story?
Because I thought it was important because I wanted people to know like history about my people and how we're the first people in the world and how we created everything pretty much and the materials we had, the knowledge we had. And I just wanted to give people information that they might not have known before.
Very good. And so thank you. So for the audience, what's so important to me is that both Marcels talk about ancestors and my. And they're talking about people on the continent. We're not talking about African Americans. They're talking about Africans. I think that's so important. Marcel, great job. And the next storyteller is?
Hi, my name is Jafia McRae. I'm an 8th grader going on to 9th grade. I went to Akikurasi Middle School. Now I'm going to Garfield High School. I will be talking about a person named Cujo Lewis. Hurston's books tell us the story of Lewis, who was born Oluwo Hosala in what is now the West African country of Benin, a member of the Yoruba people. He was only 19 years old when members of the neighboring Dahomian tribe invaded his village, captured him along with others, and marched them to the coast. There, he and about 120 others were sold into slavery and crammed into the Clotilda, the last slave ship to reach the continental United States. The Clotilda brought its captives to Alabama in 1860, just a year before the outbreak of the Civil War. Even though slavery was legal at the time in the U.S., the international slave trade was not, and hadn't been for over 50 years. Along with many European nations, the U.S. had outlawed the practice in 1807, but Lewis's journey is an example of how slave traders went around the law to continue to bring over human cargo. To avoid detection, Lewis' captors snuck him and the other survivors into Alabama at night. He made them hide in a swamp for several days to hide the evidence of their crime. The 86-foot sailboat was then set ablaze on the banks of the Mobile Tinsaw Delta. Its remains may have been uncovered in January 2018. Most poignantly, Lewis's narrative provides a first-hand account of the disorienting trauma of slavery. After being abducted from his home, Lewis was forced into a ship with strangers. The abductees spent several months together during the treacherous passage to the United States, but were then separated in Alabama to go to different owners. A marker to commemorate Cujo Lewis, considered to be the last surviving victim of Atlantic slave trade between Africa and the United States in Mobile, Alabama. We were very sorry to be parted from one another, Lewis told Hurston. We, 70 days across the water from the Africa soil, and now they part us from one another before we cry. Therefore, our grief so heavy, it looks like we can't stand it. I think maybe I die in sleep when I dream about my mama. Lewis also describes what it was like to arrive on a plantation where no one spoke his language and could explain to him where he was or what was going on. We don't know why we were brought here, way back from our country to work like this, he told Hurston. Everybody looks at us strange. We want to talk with the other colored folks, but they don't know what we say. As for the Civil War, Lewis said he wasn't aware of it when it first started. But partway through, he began to hear that the North had started a war to free enslaved people like him. A few days later, after Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered in April 1865, Lewis says that a group of Union soldiers stopped by a boat on which he and other enslaved people were working and told them they were free. Lewis expected to receive compensation for being kidnapped and forced into slavery, and was angry to discover that emancipation didn't come with promise of 40 acres and a mule, or any kind of reparations. Frustrated by the refusal of the government to provide him with land to live on after stealing him away from his homeland, he and a group of 31 other free people saved up money to buy land near Mobile, which they called Africa. Hurston's use of vernacular dialogue in both her novels and anthropological interviews was often controversial, as some Black American thinkers at the time argued that this played to Black cultures in the minds of white people. Hurston disagreed and refused to change Lewis' dialect, which was one of the reasons a publisher turned her manuscript down back in the 1930s. Many decades later, her principled stance means that modern readers get to hear Lewis's story the way he told it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So hopefully you guys received that history lesson. Okay. There was so much woven in there. And just so the family out in the audience, every one of these junior storytellers' story touched me, because this story is so riveting, because Miss Hurst, she refused to change the language, how she wrote that book in the 30s. And a white publisher said, guess what? You have to change the language. And she said, no. And so I'm so inspired by this book and this writing, but also too by Miss Jofia choosing this subject, because enslavement is not an easy topic to talk about. So Miss Jofia, are you out there? Hi.
Yeah, hi, sorry.
It's okay, you did an amazing job. So how was it? How was it seeing yourself on the screen?
I'm not even gonna lie. I was a little scared because I don't really like staring at myself, especially when talking on video. So yeah.
Did amazing. So get used to it because this is just the first of many. So it's going to ask you a question, and we had this discussion during the sessions. Why do you feel it was so important to tell this story?
Okay, yes. I think it was very important to me because personally, I'm gonna give you a little background on myself. I was not born here in like America. I was born in the continent of Africa, in the country Ghana, West Seattle. I mean, sorry, not West Seattle, West Africa. And where I come from, there was like I lived on like the Gold Coast. That's what people called it, Gold Coast. Mm-hmm. And I also like almost every week I would be going to like because I lived really close to like a slave castle that still like kind of smelled and had like moss and everything growing everywhere on it, but it was still okay. And I used to play there, and I did learn like history from there. But for me, I did not know about the last slave ship. Like personally for me, I thought that it was all dead, like everybody was dead. The ship was in like a wreckage and everything like that. So I thought that for people who, not like disrespecting anybody, but for people who may not have come from like where I grew up or anything, will most likely not know that, especially from what you learn in school today. So I thought that it was important for people to know that yes, there were still people, or at least a person or two, who did survive that terrible thing that happened to us. And yeah.
Way to go. And before Ms. Jafia leaves, I just want to say this again. Students need spaces to name and critique injustice to help them ultimately develop the agency to build a better world. As long as oppression is present in the world, young people need pedagogy that nurtures criticality. So viewers, you're witnessing criticality through their storytelling. Thank you so much, Jafia. And so the next storyteller is going to be
Hi, I'm Akaria Crawford, and I'm an incoming senior at Tesla STEM High School. The name of my story is America's Profiling Medical Field. Why I chose this story was because of the unfair treatment my dad got in the ICU. Do you ever feel you need to change your appearance because you won't get the same treatment as a Caucasian person and or any other race? My story ties into the Unspoken Truths Museum section, Jim Crow era, and the American chattel slavery. My poem. My father passed away on December 17, 2020. He could have been helped near the time of his death, but based on how he looked, he was taken for granted. As a tall African-American man, he was perceived as scary and harmful due to what our society convinced us. He was an artist, a son, an uncle, a brother, and most importantly, a loving and kind father. Yet we say Black Lives Matter, but look how we act. We say Black Lives Matter, but how do we speak? Looking through history, changing who we are to reach society's peak. But how can you say we're different? How can you say we aren't the same? We all have a heart that beats, letting the blood course through our veins. The feeling of having black and brown skin changes who we are from the moment our life begins. We worry that our time comes early rather than spending our time being happy or just in the moment with our family or friends. But it's different. Why? Should my father be judged because he was born that way? Why? Should I be judged because I was born this way? Why? Should anyone be judged because they were born anyway? But skin. Skin color is what we think differentiates us from one another. It changes how we act, speak, see, and think of who we encounter. But that needs to be abolished, gone, distracted, because all that has done is created racism, microaggression, implicit bias, and much more. But one day, in hopes our society will change their perspective of how they see African Americans, Mexicans, Asians, or any person's race or skin color, and not differentiate us by that. I want the takeaway to be the realization that racism is still in the medical field towards African Americans and other races, and not to just sit down, but actually take action from now on.
I think we all should take a deep breath Thank you so much, Miss Akaria. Wow, there was so much in that. Breathe in and breathe out. And thank you so much for reminding us that regardless how far we've come, there's still a ways to go. Are you there, Miss Akaria?
Yeah, I'm here.
I know you are. Thank you so much. So thank you for sharing. And I'm going to say this to the audience. This is a very intimate story, and I really appreciate it. And one of the things I've learned, and I shared this with the junior storytellers, I share some of my intimate vulnerabilities with them so I can model what getting some relief looks like. So I really appreciated Ms. Akaria bringing this story to the group. So why was it important for you to tell this story?
I felt like it was important to tell this story because it showed that even where we are now, that we're not getting like the same treatment or better treatment than most other races. And it shows that they still don't care about us as a community or as people. And it really frustrated me. So I felt like it needed to be said or needed to be something that was out there.
Thank you so much. And I just want to share this. You know, Ms. Akaria goes to Tesla High School. And I think it's important for us to know that she is, I believe, the only Black person there at the entire college. Excuse me, entire high school.
High school.
And that's important. So the question becomes, audience, how do we create spaces for the Akarias of the world to feel empowered, even though the social community they're involved in doesn't look like that? And just so you know, Akaria, I'm so proud of you, and we got you, okay?
Thank you.
Anything else you want to share with us?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and the next storyteller is going to be
Black Health and Rest by Fanikia Johnson. Hi, my name is Fanikia Johnson. I go to Summit Sierra High School in the International District, and I'm in the 11th grade. Black people have struggled with health, mental or not, since they were forcibly brought to the Americas. There has always been a ridiculous health disparity between us and our white counterparts. But today, why I want to talk to you about mental health specifically is because I believe you can't heal the physical without the mental imbalance. I believe my story fits into all parts of the museum since this topic has been unaddressed since the beginning of America. Mental illness is something that has affected me and others around me largely in our personal lives. Living in a capitalistic productivity mindset leads us to burnout so quickly. And since it's embedded in everything we do, it's constantly affecting us. As I was recently told, the most defiant and resilient thing we as a Black people can do is to let our bodies rest. We are constantly told we need to be productive to be worth something. We need to constantly break down barriers to be worth something. But what makes you worth it to the people around you is that you're being yourself. And it's hard to be yourself when you got one foot in the grave because of stress. Let your resilience be getting a massage, drinking a glass of water, even doing a kind thing for someone else to make them happy. Whatever allows you to rest, even for a little while, is worth your time. And in making time for yourself in that way, you are being defiant to every oppressive structure that tells you you need to do more to be worth it. I believe taking care of your mental health is your highest level of defiance. But we must remember resting is a human right, one that many don't have the luxury of practicing. As much as we need to rest, we need to take the time to fight for them to rest as well. Everyone deserves rest.
Niece, every time I hear this, I think about, I need to practice what she's saying. Okay. So family out there, are you hearing these junior storytellers speak to us? Thank you so much.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Slay! Okay, calm down. All right. So I just want to say this before I bring Fanikia on. There's going to be an opportunity at the end for Q&A for me and the junior storytellers. And I really want you all to stick around because just so you know, and Noni reminded me of this, they have a lot more to say, just so you know. Okay. So Fanikia, are you there?
Yeah.
Great. And since this is one of my village nieces, and just like the Marcel brothers. I've grown up with these. They're no longer young people. They're teenagers, young adults. And so I'm just so grateful I've got a chance to see you grow. So why was it important? Why was it so important for you to pick this topic for your story?
Because like moments exactly like today when I'm like butt booty tired from all of the stuff that I have to do, and I have to constantly remind myself that I like need to take a break. Like everything is constantly going to be coming at me, and as a Black person and as a woman and just as like all of the different things, there's always going to be something. But even within that something can wait for me to be able to have the ability to deal with it, because I've been rushing around like all day and doing a whole bunch of different stuff, and I keep forgetting that like you need to drink water, you need to eat, you need to go like do something nice for yourself. And that was basically just a reminder for myself that I knew other people probably needed.
Well, yes, like Uncle, I need that, right? And so before Fanikia leaves, I want the audience to know that these young adults had to be on screen at 10 a.m. during the session. Some of them worked closing shifts on their jobs. Some of them had other jobs, but you know what? They showed up. And sometimes they were a little bit late, but guess what? They still showed up because they were committed. And I always told them, thank you for showing up for you, not for me. And that's so important. So Fanikia, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Remember to drink water. Remember to eat. If you're feeling extra stressed, take like a 10-minute break, not 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and make sure to get 7 hours of sleep because it's really important.
Adults, are you out there taking notes? Okay, all right. Thank you, Fanikia. So the next storyteller is going to be.
Hi, my name is Latricia Jackson, and I'm a junior going to Summit Sierra. This piece is entitled Self-Love. Every once in a while, I come in contact with a very specific kind of situation. Some call them coons, some call them misled. Now, this situation can manifest in a variety of different forms. I'm having a conversation with a loved one, and we stumble onto a disagreement in which they say that we shouldn't blame the white man for everything, and that our own people should lift ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Or maybe a fellow classmate and I get into a screaming match because we refuse to acknowledge the power that institutionalized racism still has in their lives, and I simply couldn't listen without trying to show them the truth. Pitter-patter, left or right, these occurrences are nearly impossible to not have come in contact with, and whenever I do, not once have I found myself leaving without shedding a tear or two, or 20 even. How could they be so hypnotized? How could they not see in themselves what I see? The Cushites, Carthage, the Mali Empire, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, and Fred Hampton. Don't they see these people in themselves? I see them. Every day, I'm reminded of Black excellence in its many brilliant forms, and it hurts to see my brothers and sisters be so blind to what's right in front of them. How do we teach each other our worth? How do we encourage them to embrace who they are and release them from the shackles of self-hatred? Think about that.
My goodness. Patricia's another village niece. And like Fanikia, they've been like twins in my life since the beginning, right? And so for the audience, just so you know, as you can see, each junior storyteller chose a unique format. And Latricia said, I want to do spoken word. Love it. And so one of the things that I challenged them on is, so what question would you want to be incorporated in your story, and what would you want to leave the audience with? And it wasn't mandatory, but as you can see, some of them had questions embedded in their storytelling. And I appreciate Latricia's because she really talked about us as a people. She was speaking to people that look like me. And when she said, don't we see Langston Hughes in us? And I love that piece because I'll say this, these to the junior storytellers, everything you would want is already inside of you. So the goal is is to tap into that and to empower yourself to do exactly what you're doing. So Latricia, I'm proud of you. So why was it important for you to tell this story?
Because I feel like a lot of the times when we talk about like members of our community, especially the Black community, it's not always in a positive light. And whenever I think about, I guess, negative aspects of like self-hatred, or negative aspects under that being self-hatred, I mainly empathize, and I really just wanted to show that like we need to heal ourselves, and we need to love ourselves rather than casting out the ones who have not learned how to love themselves. Like I or you may love yourself.
Thank you so much. And what I like, a couple of things but Fanikia talked about self-care and mental illness. And then Latricia is talking about the impact sometimes when we don't do that. And I think that's so important. So Tricia, is there anything else you want to share with us right now?
Love yourself, because I love you.
Thank you. Look at that smile. Thank you so much. So our next storyteller is going to be.
Hello, my name is Sainea Shell, and I'm going into my second year at the University of Southern California. And here's my presentation called An Insight to Private Schools from a New Perspective. Growing up, I was told I had to go to college. After enrolling in Rainer Scholars, a college prep program, I was on the path to get into college. Along this path was going to a private school. This story is very personal to me because I went to a private school for 7 years, and I really want to change the understanding we have about private schools and how they support or fail to support Black students. As I go through this, I would like everyone to think about this question. How can we support Black students in predominantly white institutions, including both colleges and private schools? Historically, private schools were created and flourished after desegregation was put into place as a means for white people to escape it. They created a culture of selectivity through making various loops to jump through to get into these private schools. Some of these barriers included price and the content of the teachings. Private schools were not made to make Black students and families feel included in their design, so to better support them, we need to make changes in order to create a more inclusive community. Private schools date back to the schools opened by Catholic missionaries in Florida and Louisiana in the 16th century. They now prefer to be called independent schools because of their freedom to operate outside of the government and local government control. They were used as safe havens for Southern whites to escape the effects of the impending and ongoing desegregation mandates. Speaking from my experience and similar experiences on the internet, being a Black student in a private school is not always a good experience. Here I have compiled some experiences from other Black students in private schools, and here's what we had to say. Performative activism, racist classmates, racist teachers, feeling isolated, not heard or listened to, institutionalized racism, feeling like I have to defend my culture, feeling that I as one person represent my entire race. So this next question I want everyone to think about is, what are reparations? Reparations are defined as compensation for abuse and injury. After years of American chattel slavery, the United States owes Black people for the trauma and the abuse we have endured. Reparations are in place to help bridge the gap between white and Black American wealth. Reparations in the context of predominantly white institutions can look like an increase in the number of educated Black students. And it can also look like spending more time on Black mental and emotional health, giving more scholarships to Black students to increase diversity in these institutions, incorporating Black history and stories of Black success into curriculum, and teaching anti-racism and critical race theory. After hearing what I have said today, what can the white community do to make Black families feel included in the communities of predominantly white institutions? Thank you.
And for the audience, Sainea is in college. So I was surprised, this is me, I was surprised when she came on the screen. I just want to say this. So what you are experiencing is a a chronological group of young junior storytellers from 12 to 13 to someone in college. So what you're seeing is you're seeing some of the older, more mature students be able to model certain things for the younger ones. So I think that's so important. So are you there, Sinea?
Hi.
Hi. So, this is a very, very sensitive topic, to me, reparations. So why was it important for you to tell this story?
Well, it's just like really personal to me since I ended up going to a private school in Seattle from 7th grade all the way to my senior year. And I feel like a lot of people like had like a misunderstanding of what my experience was because I was a Black student at a really rich school. So a lot of people assumed that I had like all the resources and I was going to be like well off emotionally and everything. But that just like wasn't my experience. I didn't have the support that I feel like I really needed from both my school and like I feel like my community, because I feel like they didn't really understand that my experience wasn't all good. And then from like the school, like they just kind of threw me in there and hope for the best. And, that really didn't help me. So I feel like a lot of people need to like see that side and see that it's not all sunshines and rainbows.
Right. So can everybody do me a favor? I want you to rub your hands and give Sinea some love because she's in college, okay? And she's doing the darn thing, okay? Thank you so much. Our future is in good hands, okay? So our next storyteller is...
Hi, my name is Jaden, and I'm an incoming senior at Foster High School. Today, I will be sharing with you guys my story. The word lazy has been a word historically used to refer to the work ethic of Black people. Why do we as a people who built the foundation of this country and carried its economy on our backs for hundreds of years receive this title? The answer dates back hundreds of years, but most would simply say because we are poor. 18.8% of Blacks are in poverty, the highest of any race in America. And despite what bootstrap rhetoric may say, being poor does not equate to laziness. In most cases, it means the opposite. My story today is a story of African Americans and our transition into the American economy from commodity to consumer. I will be covering how, despite our incessant hard work, we are still the poorest per capita, how that came to be, and the systems that are responsible for our generational lack of wealth. So to set the foundation, for over 200 years, we had been contributing to the financial success of white people. So on June 13th, 1865, when we were freed with ownership of nothing and no financial assets of our own, the fruits of our labors were theirs. This is especially important when considering that these were now the people that we were expected to compete against. The way our society is set up, the means of production, in this case, things like tools, machinery, and anything else used to grow or produce crops, are privately owned. To put these tools to use and accomplish anything at all, labor is required. And the important idea here is that the owners of things like tools, machines, land, and natural resources controlled everything, and they were exclusively white. The way they control everything is by paying a laborer to operate the machine or use a tool, and then collect the resource. The laborer cannot avoid this because they don't own the hoe, the plow, or the land. And so with ownership of nothing, the only thing they can do is offer their labor, which is both a virtually profitless and unsustainable lifestyle. Important things to take away from this section are ownership, who owns what and what that means, specialization in our skills in terms of what we came out of slavery with, means of production, the thing that separates the employer from the laborer, and in labor as the one thing that every able-bodied person can offer. It's impossible to talk about all of this without talking about sharecropping. For anyone unfamiliar with it, it was a system that came about after slavery was abolished, and the right to use a means of production was sold to laborers in exchange for a large share in whatever they harvested, as well as having to pay off a local merchant for resources that were loaned to them on credit that carried extremely high interest rates. This was a predatory debt system that served as a Black entry into the credit system in the US and eventually led to sharecroppers being forced to work for the landowners and pay off their debt to the merchants for the rest of their lives. Credit is a really important concept to understand because it is a system that is used by the poorest and richest people in the world. The only difference is in how the rich and the poor use it. Credit is a borrowing system where one party borrows money from a second party that takes on debt with the promise to settle the debt by returning the money with interest at a later predetermined date. This system works because the party lending the money trusts that the second party will pay it back. Because of interest and the idea that you would be paying more than you borrowed, credit should be used to invest and serve as an opportunity to own profitable things that you would not otherwise have the money for. In most situations, that second party is not a sharecropper and is instead a bank. Historically, Blacks have not had access to capital or the opportunity to take out good loans to invest with. This is because in order to be approved for a loan, you need to show that you'll be able to pay it back with or without your investment turning a profit. To demonstrate this, you need to have collateral, good credit, and an income that can support the debt that you're taking on, all of which were difficult things for Black people to obtain at the time. Not to mention the inequality and prejudice that exists and still exists in the banking system. This made not only upward socioeconomic mobility difficult for Black people to achieve through business, housing, and stocks, but left very little to be inherited from generation to generation and contributes to the lack of generational wealth we see in the Black community today. In 1960, the median income was $51,000 and a home cost $98,000, all in today's dollars. Today, a house has a median value of $210,000, a number that salaries have not been able to keep up with, as the national household average sits at just $73,000. This means it was easier to buy a house then, and it also means that we as a race were systemically deprived of the opportunity to participate in a more fair housing market, a familial foundation piece, and a profit from appreciation, if we were to sell, of course. The house we did get were in redline neighborhoods, and they don't hold the same value. Important things to take away from this section are credit, access to capital, investments, and then debt/interest. So with ownership being arguably the hardest achievement for a Black person in America, I turn to the next best chance at upward socioeconomic mobility, education. Up until our freedom, it was illegal for Black people in this country to learn to read or write. And so moving into the Jim Crow era where more Blacks than ever had a chance at a degree, this should have been a rise of the Black middle class. This evidently was not the case. Segregation and the absence of a truly equal education meant that Black schools had far fewer resources like money or books, far less educated teachers, and far less opportunities. It's also important to understand the foundation of a Black student at this time. The adults of most families of the time had been deprived of a formal education themselves, did not have educational resources at home, and were working long hours. Education is a form of human capital and remains extremely important when talking about upward socioeconomic mobility and building generational wealth. The higher paying careers require, for the most part, a higher level of education. Unsurprisingly, during this time, a large portion of Black students still remained uneducated. And so for most, the only form of human capital we possessed was labor. What these things look like now. Black people have accrued debt so much so that it outtotals our liquidated assets. The percentage of Black homeowners and home values do not align with that of the percentage of white homeowners and their home values. We still are unable to take out loans, and we still suffer from bad credit because of a predatory banking system, and a banking system that still, to be honest with you, does not trust Black people. The educational system is still as flawed as ever. So the next time that you hear this term lazy, remember that these systems predated welfare or any other form of governmental assistance for Blacks. Black people are not lazy. We are resourceful. And with more Black people than ever going to college and buying homes, we will prove that despite these systems, we will do what we have always done, prevail.
Drop the mic.
All right, all right.
Oh, Jay, my goodness. You know, I am just not even going to go there, right? Because we spent a lot of time, and just so you know, me and Miss Noni and Jaden, he had so much to say, as you can tell. We had to really support him in making sure that, that mic got dropped. So, Jaden, you out there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you so much. And Jaden is closing us out. And can we give all the storytellers some love, please, real quick?
Yes.
So I'm gonna make this quick because we're getting close on time. But I want to ask Jaden a question, and so he can answer like all the other junior storytellers. Then we're gonna go to a quick Q&A. Jaden, I already know the answer, but why was it important for you to tell this story?
Well, I'd say the main thing is like to overcome these systems, you need to understand them first, you know? And so For me, like growing up, I saw a lot of these systems in the way that they like plagued my family, and then I saw generationally how it had affected my family and stuff. And so I feel like my mom and my grandmother still like they were still learning this stuff as I was growing up. And so being around them and being able to see like how it affected them firsthand, just gave me an idea of like what I needed to do on my own time, what I need to do, what I need to learn, to make sure that I could end up in a better position, and also how I could have my like peers and other like people in the Black community find themselves in a better position, you know, financially, politically, like, I mean, just, you know.
Yes, yes, I do know. So we're going to close this out. I'm just going to read two things from what I read earlier. As a broader part of struggle to counter multiple attacks of oppression and violence, they use their minds, their pens as weapons to battle injustice. And last but not least, thank you all so much. Students need spaces to name and critique injustice to help them ultimately develop the agency to build a better world. As long as oppression is present in the world, young people, you junior storytellers, need a pedagogy that nurtures criticality. Thank you so much. I never envisioned in 2005 when I started this work, it was going to evolve into this. You guys all give me mad hope. Thank you very much. So we're going to open this up for a little Q&A. Miss Noni, you there? Yes?
I think you wanted to check in with some of the parents first.
Thank you. So, see, I told you about that Miss Noni in the background. So are there any parents out there, please, that would want to share a little bit about what this meant for your students or your guardians to be involved in this program?
What it makes me feel, I think it is always amazing when our youth are uplifting their heritage and embracing it. And as we have seen tonight is Black brilliance. And as somebody put in the chat, we are the founders of everything. And when we hear these youth talk today, we see why that is the truth. So I'm just proud to be Black, proud of my heritage, proud of my child and other youth. They might not be my blood family, but whenever I see a Black youth do amazing things, it makes me proud. It makes me inspired. It makes me joyous.
Right.
So thank you.
Yeah. Who's your baby?
Japhia, not Jophia. It's
Yeah, I stand corrected. Hey, just so you know, she corrected me in the chat, just so you know, okay? Thank you for that.
Privately.
Okay, that's what we do. Right, thank you. All right, is there another parent out there?
This is Kibibi. I'd like to say something. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yay. I'm so filled with love and hope for our future. We have a bright future ahead of us due to them. I'm just overwhelmed with joy and pride in our youth. Thank you, y'all. Thank you for taking the gauntlet and running the race, because you know I'm a senior citizen and I've been on the front line forever. And to see that the troops, the real troops, the ones that are going to win the war, are behind me, I'm just overwhelmed with joy. Thank you, babies. I love you with all my heart.
Thank you, Ms. Kabibi. Just so y'all know, she's a master storyteller elder herself. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up. Is there anybody else who would like to share something?
I can. I'm Carrie Bullock.
Okay, Carrie, hi.
And hi, we have public school students listening in with the family today, and I'm thankful for this presentation. Thank you, Seattle Public Library and Deborah Richardson, and especially the students that you've arranged. The reason this is so important to us is because in public schools, we still don't have Black history represented accurately and truthfully as American history, and Black history is American history. And so for now, while those of us who are working in the public school boundaries to try and bring this sort of education to schools, this authentic truth, formally omitted history. This is the way that we can get it for our students, is through programs and opportunities like this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So Ms. Fernell, I know you want to speak, but I want to hear, if I can I call on Noni to share just a few words, please?
Thank you to the library. Thank you to Amy Tweedle, because part of the goal for this was to be qualitative and not quantitative, to really do some work that was meaningful. And I feel like we achieved that with these, just being able to hear these wonderful stories. The other part is that each one of these young people, each one of these junior storytellers came with their story already with them. Some of them, it was like they had it in their hands overflowing, and some of them, they uncovered it as we gave context or a platform. But the beautiful thing is that I think for you junior storytellers, you're so brave and courageous, because it's one thing to have a story and to discover your story or know your story, and it's another thing entirely to share your story out loud. So I just want to say thank you. Your confidence. When we were listening to the recordings, I was like, oh, I guess I better take some notes. I guess I better apply that to my life. And I am so grateful for you all. And I can't wait to see what you accomplish in this year in life and how you inspire others to do the same. So thank you. And also to the parents and guardians who are champions to get their young people connected to the program so that we can even begin down this path. So appreciate you all. Thank you. And Mr. Richardson, Delbert Richardson, for your vision on how to hold this legacy for generations. I think it's really powerful. And any opportunity we have to open up a door, bring people with us, is an amazing opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Noni. Ms. Fernell?
Oh my goodness, where do I begin? First, thank you for that blistering truth and inspiration. All the youth here just give me life. And thank you, Delbert. I can't wait to partner with you more and open up those spaces for us to get a picture of our future through the youth eyes, voice, presence, their experience. I can't live without that. That the future has to be so clear. It's so clear to me through their voice, their eyes, their brilliance, their experience, their written word, spoken word, all of it. So I can't wait to partner with you. I've got some youth here tonight as well. Root of Our Youth is just got open arms and welcoming to continue to create that kind of space and invite that brilliance in and share that brilliance and keep going forever and ever. Amen. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
Delbert.
Thank you. I'm going to call on someone that probably is not expecting to be called on. Dr. Cheeks?
Well, I'm just glad. Oh man, this is superseded all my expectations. So I just thank you so much for the invitation to hear these brilliant minds. My name is Dr. Cheeks. I'm based in Arizona. I am a scholar in computer science, my PhD there, and I work with youth in STEAM education and also AI. So yeah, I had a question for the audience. This was beautiful. And my question, I'm talking about the scholars, the young scholars, the storytellers. What is, if you can identify like one thing that you discovered about yourself as you were researching the literature for your story that may align even with your life today? Like one thing that you discovered about yourself. I'll just ask the first person who came to mind. Akira, I want to hear from you. I would love to hear from Jafia, and I would love to hear from Akira. As I say, Akira, Jaden.
Yeah, I got you. Wait, so the names are Jaden, Akaria, and then Jafia.
Akaria. Okay, I said it all wrong. Okay, Akaria.
Close enough. Okay, Kari, she said your name first.
Something I figured out about myself when researching the project, or really looking at my life experience and pulling it all together to be something that I can tell an audience, was my drive, because I knew I wanted to get this story out. I just wasn't sure how. So when my mom/aunt presented this opportunity to me, I thought it was a great opportunity to actually get it out, because I needed it to be said rather than just kept to myself, and made me feel like we're not going to get further than we are now.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Jaden?
Yeah, I got you. So, for me, I would say I learned all of these kind of concepts pretty objectively, right? Like I learned them like purely through how do I say that? Like educational kind of in school, not in school, but like you know, there was no race, there was nothing attached to it. It was completely separate. It was just about
They were abstract, just abstract knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when I look at it, and I kind of like this happened when I think Mr. D and Miss Nani, they were there for this process, but like what happened was I was kind of like going through this.
He's about to tell her. He's telling her how to get started.
You felt like the bubbles that I had. There was like a bunch of different stuff in them, and I kind of just was going through it and seeing how like really interconnected these things all were, but also how intentional everything was, you know. So for me, it was just really about like I just had never really considered how like really the significance of credit and the significance of and how that impacted home ownership and education, all these different things that you like learn about so separately, you know, and how intertwined they are. So it was really important for me, I think. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's in my world, we call those cascade effects. So thank you for sharing that. And what about you? Anyone can speak, but what about you, Jafia?
One second. I'm sorry about that. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure, but I thought that. Wait, are you asking me why it was important for me to share it?
No.
Or-
What did you learn about yourself
Right.
in the discovery of the knowledge that you gained for telling your story?
Okay. I felt like something that I learned personally about myself was that, you know, I knew that the Black community and Africans and the Black people itself were like super smart. I just didn't know that they created like so many things that I thought like because it's just like things that I don't really think about. Like I didn't know that, you know, a Black person created that, or a Black person created like something else. So I think that's also what I learned like personally for myself. And typically about what I talked about, I think I felt like I learned a lot of more of my history that may not be important to like a whole bunch of other people, but like to me, it's very important for me to know because like it is my history. And, you know, it's one of those things where not a lot of people may know about it. Like this person that we talked about in this like program, I think earlier on about, I think his name is Takaki. I hope I said his name right. And he basically had this like, had a book, I also did this in school, about like kind of like seeing the world and seeing like this, like the racism and inequality in America from a different perspective. Because as you can see, like a whole, like everything that we learn in school today and like literally everything that goes on in our lives are not mostly from people of color's perspective, but mostly from the, I don't know if this is right to say, like the most binary, I guess, I'm not sure if that's the right word, race, which is like the white people. And yeah, I think it was very important for me to, you know, see the world from a different perspective. As
Thank you so much.
says something about saying, you know, like it's like there's one perspective and then there's another perspective and then there's like the truth. So yeah, that was very important to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jafia. I think Jafia was talking about Ronald Dukakis's book, A Different Mirror, A History of Multicultural America. Oh.
Yeah, I was talking about that one. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there are, Fanikia still on here. Fanikia, is there anything you want to say to Miss the Dr. Cheeks about her question?
Nah.
Okay.
You're beautiful, Fanikia. I'm gonna do everything you said. I was looking for my water, but my son took it. So yeah, I will practice what you told me.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much. I do have one more question. Is Sanaya on still?
Yes.
Sanaya, the question I have, how did your experience at the private school inform your decision of where you went to university?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? My Wi-Fi was glitching a little bit.
Yeah, so how did your experience in the private school inform your decision for university, like your choice for where you went in university?
Well, choosing my school as actually like I don't know, it wasn't always I didn't feel like it was my choice most of the time, because I had a white, what is her official title? College counselor. And she told me like up front that she was like only gonna send me to schools in the middle of nowhere, like Minnesota and like really small towns, because like those were places that she knew for sure that I would get into. And so she was kind of just saying like only apply to schools that you know for sure about. And I kind of snuck and applied to my school. So I go to USC now, but my college counselor did not want me to apply here. She was not supportive of that. And so when I got in, it was just kind of like I guess it was like my best option, because it felt like the best place for me to like grow and like see the world, or like see people from other like parts of the world without feeling like so isolated in the middle of nowhere, like in Minnesota. I don't know if that answers your question, but like that's kind of.
Oh, definitely. It answered and a lot more. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. It's insightful and amazing. So thank you for sharing.
Is there someone else like to ask the question of the remaining junior storytellers, Miss Noni or Mr. D?
I would like to ask a question if I may. May I speak? Mic check.
Yes, you may. Yes, you may.
Very good. As a scholar, I've learned that most of the time in getting this knowledge and getting this wisdom, the idea is to come up with solutions and be able to draw upon that knowledge to provide solutions to the world and the stakeholders around us. I want to encourage you all as we continue to educate ourselves. It is imperative that you remain as this type of storyteller. You're all fantastic. In the corporate world or in the so-called mainstream world, it's important to stay who you are, to remain true to who you are. At one point, I thought that because I was working for a white company or going to a white school, I had to change my tune. It was only when I began to be true to who I was, that I found out that the ancestors that had taught me all these things that we're collectively sharing now and collectively retelling now, it was only then that I began to truly be what is called not a solutionist, but a solutionist. The word soul is spelled S-O-U-L. That type of solutionist provides answers for the world that's around us. So I would only ask that you would continue to be true to this type of storytelling. And one last question I have to the young lady from Ghana. You said something about the smell, and you recall, I guess, when playing as a child in I would imagine the Elmina castles or other castles similar to that you had a smell. Could you come on for a few moments and talk about what you meant about that smell and how that impacts you perhaps even today?
Yeah, of course. So when, for the first time that I think I remember like going in there, it was like, it wasn't like a good smell. It was kind of like it's kind of hard to explain. It smells like not bad, but you can tell that like something kind of like bad happened there just from like kind of, it's very difficult. It definitely smells like a little moldy. And yeah, hot. I think so. And for me, it kind of smelled like, I don't know if this is like a smell, but like a little salty for like, I think it was also because it was like so close to the ocean. Yeah. So I got quite used to that. And that was just like in the castle, but it got even worse when you actually went into where they were kept in. So it was just like this huge room or yeah.
And when you say where they were kept, you mean our ancestors, your ancestors, our
Yeah.
ancestors.
Right.
Yeah, how does that impact your storytelling, you think, today, knowing that that truth was something that is in fact real? How does that awaken the storytelling part of who you are?
I think it affects me personally, because you know what, for personally, just for me, like now that I'm just like actually thinking about it, like that smell was really important to me because actually I got really used to it just from going there like a bunch of times. I'm not sure in a way that it exactly impacted me, but I think it might have like impacted me by just being able or having like the honor to be able to like experience that, because not a lot of people are able to like experience that. I'm not sure.
Thank you for sharing that answer. And I would pray that we all desire to return to the motherland in some kind of way to experience the sights and sounds, the feels, the emotions of where she and others have grown up. I love the story of Timbuktu. It makes me want to go to Timbuktu, and I want to thank you, young Marcel, for sharing that story with us. So thank you, one and all. It was a beautiful rendition. Thank you, Mr. Richardson and others for bringing this sacredness, this safe place of telling these stories. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jafia. And when she brought that up in one of the earlier sessions about the smell, having been to Ghana a couple of times, I immediately recall that smell, just so you know. And it's something you'll never forget if you go to the castles in Ghana. So we're about to wind down here, family. Is there someone else? Well, you know what? There's a grandmother on this screen, right? Queen Makata, you saw your baby. How does that make you feel? Are you there, Makata?
This is Kibibi.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
here.
here she comes. Here she comes.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, you know, God is so good. It's just so beautiful. I'm telling you, I can't take a breath when I hear these young people speak. And of course, you know, I'm just elated about Phoenicia and actually all of the young people and the way they shared. It's important in the way they shared. That right there is sacred. It touches the heart immediately when they speak. And that right there cannot be tampered with. And I am so excited that you sit in that space where you allow for space to occur for these young brilliant scholars to share in such, oh my God, genuineness that actually rinses over our entire beings. And for me, I know I'm blessed, and I'm sure everyone is blessed that we heard these young people tonight. And the awesomeness of the intergenerational power is significant here, in that now we have this opportunity to close those gaps that have been, how can I say, splintered throughout history. And now we can bring it together in such a way that we can actually scaffold and be the architects that we are and rebuild our greatness. So God bless. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And I would love to close out with two people. There's 3 generations on the screen. Kyla Crawford's on here and Grandma's on here. So Kyla, is it possible for us to see you? Is it possible? There she is. So that's
here.
So who's your baby on the screen?
So Jaden is my son, and then Akaria calls me Aunt Mom because I helped to raise her.
Okay.
So she's my daughter niece, and when she's really mad at me, she calls me Kyla. So.
Okay, so why don't you share, and then we're gonna call on your mom next.
Oh yes, Miss Cornelia is my
Yes.
mom. Yeah, I'm just so proud of them. They're working so hard at school, and Kari, I call her Kari, is working like an actual job, and Jaden is working and writing out W-9s, and I'm just like, I'm just so proud of them, and just for all their hard work and all their dedication and all their perseverance. It's beautiful, and I love that you created this space, Delbert and Noni, because they have been going to the Unspoken Truths Museum events ever since before they started elementary school, since they were in preschool. They've been going, what was it? The first one they went to was down off Rainier and Jackson in this little rain museum spot. And when I was working at Grace United Methodist Church, I took a small group, a breakout service of students over there, and took my kids when they were in preschool. And that was the first time they saw it. So for them to go from seeing and witnessing this history at 3-5 years old to being able to participate in it and carry that legacy forth at now seniors in high school about to go out into the world it's unremarkable. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You're gonna make me cry. So Grandma, are you gonna take us out, please? Can you? Can't hear you, Grandma. You're muted.
You're muted, Mama.
I'm trying to unmute me. There I am.
There you go.
All right. I am just so blown away, just almost at a loss of words for the beauty and the sacredness of what you have done in opening this portal for these children, scholars, brilliant minds to be completely progressive in all that they have come to the planet to share. It felt to me, as I listened to every one of them, it felt so much like they were speaking from having been forged in the fire of their own life experiences that took them to the connectedness in their humanity to the humanity of all others. And they began to speak of the connectedness to the ancestral, sorrow, pain, joy, beauty, blessing. And I was so moved by all the ways in which they were able to share with dignity, with beauty, with courage, with just amazing strength. And that just is a beautiful thing to witness and behold. And I'm so proud of the work you're doing with them. I'm so proud of Akaria and Jaden, who are my grandchildren. Of course, I'm raising Akaria with my daughter. And I have no words. There's such a furiousness of love that emanates from a project like this, from a place like this, from a teaching like this, from a telling like this. And the sacredness of the stories in which they have shared has released what I call the furiousness of love that cannot be stopped.
Drop the mic.
Yes, I love
Drop the mic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, Ms. Noni.
Hello. That was beautiful.
Yes, Ms. Noni.
I have a question for Ms. Akaria, if you're willing to share about the pictures that were part of your presentation that everyone might not have had a chance to see, but when they watch the replay, they'll have some understanding of those.
Yes. So all the drawings that were in the presentation were drawings that my dad drew throughout his life. And in every single one of them, I felt like there was a different meaning and it represented kind of the story I was telling. And my grandmother knows a lot more about the drawings because she was there when he first started drawing. And I felt like he would have been a great artist, but he got that opportunity taken away so early because of the color of his skin.
And I think if I could say this, in addition to what Akaria is sharing, she told the story of the profiling that he experienced in from the medical system. And I've been writing his story, which will be told in full someday, because I really believe he was profiled to death. And the pictures and the art represent the life and the legacy that continues to live on. Because at every stage of his life, he used art to communicate just the opposite of what he was experiencing. And he got his first commission, I think, at age 7. And there was an attorney who asked him to do a Jewish synagogue for him, and he wanted him to place it in a wooded setting because it was important to this Jewish community in Minnesota. And he drew this with a pencil, and he put every brick in place, and he took it out of a street to a wooded setting. The reason I'm sharing this is because in the news, I think it was a couple of years ago. Well, let me back up and say that this attorney got this amazingly expensive frame and hung the synagogue in it. And it was celebrated by this Jewish synagogue in Duluth, Minnesota. And there was a story in the news a couple of years ago where the synagogue caught on fire and I think burned to the ground, but the actual painting was the only thing that was left, or the actual drawing that he did was the only thing that remained. And it was just kind of incredible. So when I say his life is being expressed through the art, and it leaves a legacy, and it lives on in ways that I think have been so formidable for Akaria and for myself and for the rest of the family. And we keep discovering little things about his art. So at some point, Mr. Delbert, Mr. Richardson, I will share with you when I am in the final stages of telling his story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And family, just so you know, there are students on here that have started school. There's students on here that got to go to work, and we could keep talking for a while. I just want to honor this space, and I'm speechless. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to give up their evening. But I don't believe anyone's leaving here not full. And so the question I want to leave you all with is this: how are the children? There's a saying in most African villages where they actually equate the health of the village by that saying. How are the children? Just want to leave us with that question, because our children share tonight how they are, but they're committed to changing the world.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Yes.
I will be honored. Thank you so much for sharing that. And family, just so you know, there are students on here that have started school. There's students on here that got to go to work, and we could keep talking for a while. I just want to honor this space, and I'm speechless. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to give up their evening. But I don't believe anyone's leaving here not full. And so the question I want to leave you all with is this: how are the children? There's a saying in most African villages where they actually equate the health of the village by that saying. How are the children? Just want to leave us with that question, because our children share tonight how they are, but they're committed to changing the world.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Yes.